Hey, what's up guys? Glad to see you here. First, I want to say that this is a grinder gear related video. If you're in the market for purchasing a coffee grinder, this might be the video for you because you might be looking at the Baratza Encore. Let's talk about it. Okay, so the Baratza Encore, a highly rated, highly recommended, widely purchased grinder. I'm here to tell you right now that this grinder that so many people seem to have bought and loved might not be the best option in 2022 going into 2023 with what other options are out there now. Let's take a look. All right, so the Baratza Encore conical burr grinder. I believe it's a 43mm burr set. If that's wrong, I'll put it up on the screen right now. $170. We're gonna get that out of the way right away because firstly, that's already an issue for me when we have another great grinder out there for $80, $90, $100. The OXO conical burr grinder looks a lot like this, does a lot of the same stuff as this. I've recommended the OXO grinder to a lot of people and none of those people have come back to say they regret that purchase. None of them had to return it. None of them say they dislike anything that it does. So in the $80 to $90 price range, you have another great grinder option. Is this worth nearly twice as much? I don't think so. Let's talk about that. So first of all, this grinder, I've been using it for only a week. I've made a few brews with it and I've gotten to understand it a little bit, and we're gonna go through some grinding today. We're gonna use it and I'm gonna show you some of the things I do and don't like about it. Do I think that it provides twice the value or even a significantly better value than the OXO grinder? I don't really think so. I think that this grinder has been around for long enough, and now this, I think, is being outpaced by a grinder like the OXO in the value department. Now, I can't speak to long-term use. I can't speak to the reliability of the company to uphold a warranty or repair. I have heard that the Baratza Encore is easily repairable. I have heard you can get parts, but I don't know much more beyond that. So if you want to add to the conversation, please do. And I would have no assumption to think that Baratza wouldn't provide support where and when it's needed. But I also wouldn't assume any different about OXO. The quality of those services may differ. Now, something you're going to notice right away is that there's not many settings on it. In fact, from the front, you only see one button right here. Now, that's no issue as long as this grinder does what you need it to do. I would like to compare this grinder to the fellow Ode, but I really don't feel comfortable doing that because it's a grinder that is not in the same price range. The fellow Ode is about twice the cost of this. If you're in the almost $200 price bracket looking for a good grinder, I'm much more inclined to compare this grinder to the Breville Smart Grinder Pro that I've been using back here. So I'm going to continue this conversation comparing the Baratza Encore to the Breville Smart Grinder Pro because I've used the SGP for a long time. I know its quirks and I know its value. This is the Baratza Encore. This is the Breville Smart Grinder Pro. Immediately you're going to notice some differences. What we have here is a lot more going on the front of this grinder. You have a dial here for grind amount. You have a button here for shots or cups. So this is a quantity. You can kind of program how many shots, like espresso shots, you want to grind. Or you can program how many cups of coffee you want this to grind for. This, instead of using shots or cups, you can grind for time. So you can just say grind for 30 seconds, grind for 1 minute. I tend to just ignore that and make sure I only have in my hopper exactly what I need to grind and then just grind until that's gone. And that's kind of the way I recommend it for anybody who's learning this process. Just grind for exactly what you need so that you can repeat processes and learn exactly how to make the right brew for you. So we have programming functions here. That's not extremely important because in essence I use this the same way I would use this. But for anybody who doesn't want to do it that way, it is kind of nice to have some options. And this adjusts your grind size. We have fine if you turn it all the way clockwise, and we have coarse if you turn it all the way counterclockwise. And it's got, I believe, over 40 different selections that go between the finest and the coarsest settings. The Baratza Encore has up to 40 varying grind size selection. And the way you do that is you turn the actual hopper. And I don't like that. And this is one of my first gripes about this grinder. A, when you actually have this grinder plugged in, there's the whole display lights up here to tell you the information, including grind size. And when you change the grind size, it tells you exactly what number you're at. And you feel the clicks pretty well. I will say at the finest settings, things get a little bit mushier, but you still feel every single click. However, on the Baratza Encore, once you get down to the finest grind settings, it gets really kind of difficult. And another thing I really don't like about this grinder is how you open up the hopper to expose the burr set, because you may need to do that to clean it every once in a while. Having the grind size selector and access to the burrs be basically part of the same mechanism makes it really annoying, because you just saw me twist it all the way to its coarsest setting, I believe, and it just kind of popped off. And I really don't like that. I did it on accident just now, and it's not actually very easy to get back on. Inside is the burr set, and one of the greatest things about this is actually how easy it is to access the burr set if you need to clean it. Very easy. You take off the hopper, you take off this little rubber gasket, and you take off the top part of the burr set, and you can clean it. Very easy. There's no locks, there's no twisting to get anything out from within the burr set. It just comes up and out, and that's a pro. That's for sure a pro. Now the problem is, even though it's easy to clean, you get things back on, the gasket goes on fairly easily, but getting this back on, there is a line that you have to line up, if you can see that. And there's a line on the actual grinder itself. At the 40 mark, there's a little arrow. And you gotta line this line up with the arrow, push down, and then you lock it back in. And that's okay, that's fine, it works. But having both the grind size selector and access to the burr set be dictated by where the grind size selection is, and it just kind of pops off, I don't like that. I really don't like that. Because once you get down there, let's say you are making a cold brew and you want it at 40, you might accidentally pop the hopper off. And that's no good, especially if you've got beans in there waiting. And now I gotta fight with it. And it almost feels like I'm gonna break something. And I don't like feeling like that, because this is not my grinder and I have to return it. Why is it such a struggle? I don't really understand how this couldn't be better designed. I don't. Oh. Ooh, buddy, this is going to be fun to edit. Okay, it appears I've got it back on. But when you go all the way over past 40, it just unlocks. Really don't like that. Okay. Looks like I got it back on there. Now, oh, I forgot the gasket. Son of a... There we go. That was not very easy to get back in. So you have easy access to the burr set to clean it. It's not very intuitive how to get things back into place. And even though you only have to do it once or twice to figure it out, the fact that the grind size selection is so interconnected with the access to the burr set, that fact that it pops off right after 40, that's poor design in my opinion. I really don't like that. One of the other things you'll see on this side is, besides the big bold logo, there's an on-off button. You move it to on, and it'll stay on for as long as you need beans ground, and that's okay. That's I guess what you would want an option for, because you don't always want to just hold that front button until there's nothing left to have an option to grind and walk away. That's pretty common. You'd hope to see that. Now, another thing that I really dislike about the Baratza Encore is just how loud it is. It is quite a bit louder than the Breville. So I'm going to plug in the Breville, and I'm going to grind them both, and you're going to hear the volume difference, and you can assess for yourself whether that's too loud for you, whether it really makes a difference or not for you. For me, it's quite obnoxious. I would not like to be grinding this every day. My kids' rooms are just on the other side of the kitchen here, so if they're sleeping in the morning still and I really want to make coffee, A, the fellow oat is quieter than both of these, but B, the Breville is quieter than the Baratza, and it's not really even close, to me anyway. So let's see if we can pick up on that with the microphone here, and you can make a decision for yourself, because this con is one of the biggest cons for me. Let's check that out. Relatively close here, about maybe 18 inches away from these grinders. So I realize that being this close may over-represent the volume, but I want to make sure I capture the correct clarity and the precise kind of differences in pitch with how these grind. So first I'm going to run them without beans in them, just to show you the volume difference without beans. Even though that's really not relevant to how anyone would use this, I am going to show it with and without beans. Oh, and before I begin, let me also say I really don't like the indicators here. Of course, having it on an LCD screen is going to be as precise as you could possibly want it to give you the exact number. On here, it goes from 20 to 30. Those are the two numbers. So it goes like 0. What is it? 0? It doesn't even say. Yeah, it says 0 on the left. 10, 20, 30, 40. Every click you see, every mark you see is 2. So 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. And then there's a click in between that you have to feel. I don't like that. It's not that you can't figure it out, but, you know, it's an extra thing you kind of got to concern yourself with, and I don't like extra little things like that. That aside, let's listen to the difference. First, we'll start with the Breville Smart Grinder Pro. So here it goes. Now that's, to me, not very loud. Without beans in it, I know, but let's do it again, and I want to kind of talk over it. And I really don't think it's all that loud. It's not hard to talk over this at all, and we'll do it again with beans in it. Okay. Now with the Encore, different story. Here we go. Here I do feel like I have to kind of talk over it. It's almost like a giant KitchenAid mixer or something. I don't know why it has to be that loud, but it is what it is, I guess. Okay, that's kind of awful. I think that's terrible. I don't really think there's an excuse for why that needs to be that loud when this can be so much quieter. This and this, big difference. If volume of your grinder is a concern, be aware. This is loud. Louder than it needs to be. Let's put some beans in them. These are just some prop beans. I'm not using these to brew with. I'm going to show you A, how it grinds, B, show you the volume of it grinding, the sound it makes, the loudness, of course. And then C, we are going to take a look at grind size consistency with these beans. I couldn't even tell you what they are. They're obviously about a medium roast of something probably pretty cheap. These were roasted a long time ago. They're just prop beans, as you can see there. I'm going to weigh out 30 grams for each of these. And we're also going to compare the time it takes to grind 30 grams at a similar drip setting. There's 30 grams there, and there's 30 grams there. Ready? So 18 seconds, give or take about a half a second for maybe that last bean to finish grinding. 18 seconds. The volume there does increase a bit with beans. I expect that to also be the case with the Baratza. 3, 2, 1. Now, you notice that I kept that timer going. That's leading me to the next issue. The stopwatch kept going past 18 seconds, 19 seconds, all the way to 26 seconds because there was 2 beans in there. You couldn't see very well from this angle. 2 beans in there that would not drop into the burrs to be ground. They kept spinning and spinning and spinning. And there is a little dome cap in there that you can see, so they kept jumping up, smacking that dome cap, and coming back down, touching the burr set, bouncing back off. 2 of them kept coming up and not allowing themselves to drop in and be ground. So by the last bean being ground, we had 26 seconds. Had those 2 beans fallen into place when they should have, we would have been in the 18 to 20 second range. It would have been very, very similar. But you're sitting there waiting for these beans to go down, down, down. Let me tell you, that's been my experience basically every time I have used this grinder. I don't get it. Other grinders seem to have this mostly figured out. Doesn't happen with the Breville basically whatsoever. Sometimes it has the same issue as the old where the beans maybe if they're oily enough, they'll stick to the slope on either this or the inside dome. And sometimes you just gotta poke it and it'll go through, but it never just bounces off the burr set. That's a design issue. I'm not sure what's up with that. I also want to reiterate, this is a much older grinder. The Baratza Encore has been around for a lot longer, and there wasn't much competition for the Encore in this price range when they made this grinder. So that was one of the pitfalls of this grinder that people were fine putting up with because there wasn't much else out there. Now we have options like this that I think outpace this in enough areas to say spend the extra $30 and get this. So as we see, both have deposited their grounds into receptacles here, catch cups. Now let's get into the actual grind sizes. Okay, so I'm using 2 Chemex filters as backing paper essentially, and we're going to take a close look. And we're going to spread them out a little bit. Now, I'm looking at this pretty closely, and I do see some variances. And let's use the tip of this here to point at exactly what I'm talking about. So we've got some fines. This fine is here, like smaller than the point of the tip of this pen. And that's to be expected with any grinder. Okay, you're gonna have grind size inconsistencies. And the more you spend on a grinder, the better this is controlled. $200 doesn't even come close to what you could spend to control this variable. We're looking at the SGP. In my opinion, for this price range, you get a pretty well controlled grind size variance. Like I said, it's not perfect, and no grinder is, but it delivers, it really does. Now let's take a look at the Encore. And already, you might be able to see what I'm talking about here. It's pretty hugely inconsistent. Check this out. Look at this chunky, that is a chocolate chip. That is a piece of gravel. Clearly, I do have a grind size selected. It looks like on average everything is coarser than the SGP. So I still have room to tune on the Encore. Again, these were just prop beans. I've used this for a week now, and this is 25 out of 40. It seemed to me, you know, the mid to low 20s is what you're looking at for a pour over on the Encore. And so I put it at 25, and you'd hope that everything is more like what you're seeing in the center here. You're hoping for the consistency of sand, and that's what a lot of this is. But with my eye, I can see here and here some big boulders like this just sticking out. And what that's going to lead to is under extraction, for one, if you're hoping that all of this is one consistent size. The ones that are bigger are going to lead to possibly nuanced under extraction. Actually, let me see if I can get closer here. Okay. So I think maybe now you can see a little better. Let's pull out some of those boulders again. Here's our monster chip. And then right around it, you can see some pretty small fines. But there's multiple, just multiple that are similar in size to this, when they should all be something like this. Okay, seeing this among this is an issue. I hope you can see that a little better. Let's do a couple more grinds and try this again. I am seeing quite a bit of variance on the Encore. This was set at 20 on the Encore. Previously we did 25, so I tuned it down to finer. What it does look like is everything went down finer, although I'm still seeing quite a bit of variance. I don't know if you can see this very well, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and a bunch more in there that you probably can't see very well. Large pieces that don't match the average here very well, and that's not what you want. Now on the SGP, again, everything appears much more controlled. There's one piece here that's bigger than the rest, but the one piece there that's bigger than the rest isn't even matching the size variance here that I'm seeing. The SGP seems to control a little bit better. The better the control on the variance in grind size, the better your control in the brew. And if you can see it visibly, then you know there's more control and potential in controlling and getting a consistently better brew. But $30, $40 difference, maybe that's something you would expect. You can find links to these grinders below. I will link the Baratza if I can. I will link the Breville, and they are Amazon affiliate links, so I get a small kickback and you pay nothing more to help me out on the channel. I recommend the Breville if you've got the budget for either of them. All right, in conclusion here, I unfortunately have to say the Baratza Encore is just shockingly mediocre for what you should be able to find in 2022, 2023. There are so many more options out there that are well below $170, and the Breville SGP over here sitting at $200 is a much better option if you can just flex a little bit on that budget. I hope this helps. I don't think you should buy the Baratza Encore. If you have exactly $170 to spend, I think you can just spend the $99 on the OXO and use that other $70 for good coffee beans. That's really what you should do. Till next time, thanks for watching.